The topic of conversation this evening is environmental toxins in your health. And the one thing that's really important for people to understand is there's so many complexities and so many variables that go into optimizing health. Sometimes it gets very, very complex. So as much as we can, we really try and simplify things by, either creating some visuals, giving people analogies, getting people to think in kind of more fundamental foundational approaches. And then the reality is sometimes things do get more complex, but what we're really going to try and do is share a few stories that we've had dealing with environmental toxins, some of the challenges that they pose, and then what you can do to mitigate some of these toxins in your life. So if we think about really keeping our health very simple, what we want to think about is health at a cellular level. Now, when it comes to certain toxins, there's certain things that we can control. And just like anything in life, there's certain things we can control and certain things that we can't. Things are out of our control. And if we think of like toxicity and you look at like some of the pollution, whether it's from factories in the air or the exhaust from cars, there's certain things that we just can't get away from. And what's really interesting is, a quick story I'll share with you guys and just how some of these toxins can affect your health and you don't even know that they're in the air. Paul and I went for a walk one Saturday, and we started out walking, and Paul actually said to me, "You're walking too fast." I was feeling really good. Sun was out. And anyway, we probably walked for about an hour, and probably a quarter mile before we got home, I just felt exhausted, and we weren't walking at a very brisk pace. We started to just kind of have more of a leisurely walk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just feel so tired. My legs felt heavy. And I'm like, you got to test me when we get home. And it's interesting because we live out in the country. And when she tested me, I came up with an environmental toxin. And the toxin I came up with was an agricultural toxin. Well, we live right next to a sod farm. And so they're constantly spraying. And it was interesting because that was something we were out for a little over an hour probably, and it really negatively affected me. So it's one of those things where you would really necessarily put two and two together unless, of course, you did something like get tested like that. But there's so many instances like that that happen every day in society, and people have no concept, no clue some of these hidden toxins that are affecting their health. So the important thing to understand is there's always cause and effect. Whatever symptomology you're experiencing, there's always a reason behind it. And if we want to keep health super simple, it gets down to cellular health, right? So there's really two components to having a healthy cell. So I want you to think of this for a second. If we are comprised of trillions and trillions of cells, approximately 30 trillion cells, bone cells, blood cells, brain cells, it's a lot of cells. And what we want to think about is, in order to have a healthy cell, we need to give the cell more of what it needs, i.e. the right raw materials. So that's 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 essential amino acids, 3 essential fatty acids. And then there's so many variables that we're dealing with on a regular basis. So sometimes we need to have additional nutrition. But the other component is we have to give the cell less of what it doesn't need, which is toxins. So if we think of a healthy cell like a grape, in an unhealthy cell like a raisin. And when the cell is not healthy, what happens is the cellular membrane, which is really the gateway to the cell, that cellular membrane will collapse and it hardens. And when that happens, we can't get good nutrition into the cell, and waste product can exit the cell. So what we have to do is we have to make sure, again, we're not only giving the body the right raw materials at a cellular level that it needs, but we have to make sure that those cells are free of toxins. So if we want to make health really simple, it boils down to two things: nutrients and toxic waste. So remember that. If we want to keep it super simple, which most people do, is just ensure you're getting the right raw materials. Now, that's a whole nother can of worms. Sometimes we have to take a deeper look into, and that's the quality of the nutrients. A lot of times people have this false sense of security. They're taking a supplement like a one a day or a Centrum, and they think they're getting sufficient nutritional value out of that. But it's really garbage nutrients, and you're really not able to synthesize or utilize that at a cellular level. So sometimes it's also the quality of the nutrition and nutritional supplementation that you're getting. So we want to be very cognizant of that as well. Now, if you've been around the Body Project for any length of time, you'll recognize this as kind of our North Star in our business. And this is something Paul and I put together 16 years ago. And it's as simple as whatever symptomology that you're experiencing at any given time. And it doesn't matter if it's brain fog, if it's a migraine headache, if it's PMS, if you can't sleep, if you've got joint pain, that is merely a reflection of your body being unbalanced. So when we take a look at the variables that affect your body's chemistry, we're looking at food. So foods can be like medicine, or it can be like poison. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about a vegetable, a fruit, or processed foods. Some people's biochemistry does not match with the food they're eating. So for instance, you could have a fruit or vegetable and actually have a negative response to that. So we have to think, obviously, if we look at just keeping it really basic, we want to stay away from foods that come in a box bag or a wrapper. We want to focus on more minimally processed whole foods. So that goes without saying, but sometimes we have to dig a little deeper, and those foods that we think are healthy for us can actually be stressing us out. Now, when it comes to foods, they're laden many times with toxins. So we also are going to take a deeper look at that. The other thing is immune challenges like bacteria and viruses and fungus and mold. So these are things that we're constantly, that we've got this barrage that's coming at us on a regular basis. So we have to do things and look at the body and addressing some of these variables so we keep a healthy immune system so we can fight off those bacteria, those viruses, those molds, that fungus. The other thing is chemicals. So chemicals can be everything from personal care products to what's sprayed on our food, carpets, but it's also electrochemical stress. So electrical chemical stress would be things like smartphones, Wi-Fi. Smart watches are horrible. We've had so many people wearing Apple watches, and Paula will tell you she's never tested anyone that tested favorably for a smartwatch. So that can really stress out your nervous system. And today, with people being so data driven, they want to get their data on everything. They want to use things like an Apple Watch, but it's very, very stressful. The body works best on something called the MENS cycle, which stands for minimal electrical neuromuscular stimulation. So if you have things like smartwatches and smartphones and Wi-Fi, if you have chemical sensitivities, that's really going to create cellular disruption. So there's all these things that are just people are so unaware of. Now, these are little micro stressors. And when we get too much micro stress, that equals macro stress. And that's when we'll start to kind of trigger a more challenging symptom. And then heavy metals can be in fish, it can be in mouth pathology, so like mercury fillings, dental crowns. Heavy metals are something that really affects a lot of people as well. And then emotional stress, sometimes it's not just what we're eating, but sometimes it's what's eating us. That also stresses our bodies out. And then scars can be from a hysterectomy, cesarean, episiotomy, any kind of trauma to the body. And then structural can be like vertebral subluxation, like in your neck, your mid back, your low back. Or it can also come from muscle imbalances. So certain muscles under stress are going to become too tight. Other muscles under stress become too weak. So the human body in optimal health is all about balance. It's all about maintaining a certain level of homeostasis. And when we get knocked out of homeostasis by these variable stressors, that's when symptoms are going to manifest. So what does conventional medicine do? They suppress the symptom. They're going to drug you. They're going to inject you. They're going to cut you in an attempt to mitigate that symptom. So what we want to do, and really the one thing that Paula and I really try and get across to people, is the symptom is oftentimes the gift. And when you're in the throes of a rough symptom, you don't want to hear that. But really what it allows us to do is it gives us information and it allows us to ask better questions. And the better questions would be not how can I get rid of that symptom, but what's causing that symptom. But because if I ask the question, what is causing that, or what can I do to get rid of that symptom? If I have a headache, I might take, you know, an Excedrin. I might do something like, for instance, we could get maybe a massage. We could get a chiropractic adjustment. And so that might be one of the factors, but sometimes with like a drug, we're just suppressing the symptom. So we want to be really careful in identifying the questions that we're asking around a particular symptom. So instead of asking, what can I do to get rid of it? We want to start digging into what's causing it. So is your bucket overflowing? So toxins, trauma, infection, all these things create inflammation, and inflammation in the body is really the enemy. So if you've got inflammation, that can lead to higher low blood pressure, digestive problems, weight loss resistance, dizziness, inability to handle stress, exertional malaise, brain fog, fatigue, headaches, hormone dysregulation, trouble sleeping, depression, mood changes, temperature dysregulation, muscle and joint pain. So again, these are just reflections of a body being unbalanced. And when Paul and I are working with someone, the first thing that we want to evaluate when someone comes in with a symptom is what's the root cause. And what we're going to really dig into with this root cause is what kind of toxicity that we might have that's dictating whether or not we're experiencing a symptom. So where are environmental toxins found? They're found in so many different areas, and that's the one thing. They're in so many hidden areas, and really the reason why we wanted to put together this presentation is just to create more awareness to, not only where are these toxins found, but the detriments of having excessive toxins in our body. So toxins in our personal environment. So it's in products that we use every day. So food packaging, cookware, personal care products. Paula had a great story today, and I'd love her to share with you what came up when she was working with a client today. So Paula, why don't you share that story? Because I think it's a great story, and what we're talking about, what people deal with on a regular basis. So why don't you share that story?
The personal care.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really when it comes down to it, there's a lot of when I test people, it's really a matter of seeing similar things that happen over and over and over again. And sometimes it's just as simple as something that you're putting on your body or you're in consuming. So it's just an awareness of like what is out there and what and how it is not good for you or how to be able to use better things. So anyways, I had tested somebody for um, basically, she had a lot of stress on her thyroid, and it was a dental product. So when it comes up dental product, there's a couple different things that can come up. So it can be a dental product could be like floss. So floss has if it's the waxy floss, it actually has PFAS on it. So that's actually a forever chemical. So that's never good to use. And as well as the like fluoride toothpaste. So fluoride is really important in the fact that when you're using fluoride, if you look on the toothpaste container, Crest or Colgate or whatever it is, it'll say on there, do not swallow more than that's allowed for, you know, the toothbrush, like a little dollop. If you do, call poison control. Well,
Right.
let's get real. That is not great. So that would tell me that it's like, no, this is not something you want to be brushing your teeth with. So you can go as simply as we have like this Boca toothpaste that I really like that does not have that in it. Is as simple as baking soda. You can use baking soda for your toothpaste. So it's just really just about being aware of what am I using, what am I consuming, looking at everything you're putting on your body, in your body, and saying, is there things in here that actually are creating a big part of the bucket? So when you have a bucket and it's overflowing, that means you start having symptoms. How can I start dumping the bucket? The dumping the bucket is getting products in your life that actually help your health versus deteriorating your health. And sometimes it's just a matter of we don't know any better because we just keep using the products and we just don't really realize it, or we don't even read the label. We don't even realize, like, does that label even say that on it? That's crazy. Like, you don't even think about that. So sometimes it's just continuing to educate yourself, like you're all here today. Like, how can I do better in my life and my lifestyle? Can I put better products on my skin for my lotions and my products on my face? So all those personal care products, I find a lot of people come with titanium dioxide. People are like, where am I getting titanium dioxide? I'm like, well, it's mainly from like pots and pans. I also find that a lot to be with mineral makeup. So mineral makeup is a very hot thing. So even if you look at beauty products, you can look at like regular products that have chemicals in it. And then there's also a clean beauty. And I love clean beauty because clean beauty is a lot healthier ingredients than actually the traditional makeup and skincare products, the clean beauty ones that you can find like at Sephora or Ulta. But it's really important to understand that even with that, the mineral makeup, there's minerals that are natural to the earth, and there's also minerals that are toxic minerals, which are considered heavy metals, which are a stressor to the body. So specifically look at your SPF. So your SPF sunproof protection. If it's a mineral base, which is the best one, try to find one that has zinc oxide and not titanium dioxide. So it's the titanium dioxide that tends to build up in the system and cause a lot of havoc on the body. So really look for things like that. I find a lot of heavy metals in the environment and air pollution. So, but skincare products is huge, 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 huge. So less ingredients, the better. And then you can also go out in the Environmental Working Group app and really look at them because they'll rate the products for you. And I think the other one is Dirty Girl. So is that what it is? Dirty Girl? I think it is. So you go on there and then on that app. And so I always look on there, like our daughter, I always say, okay, did you go on the Environmental Working Group? Did you check it to see what it's rated at? If it's rated a 1 or 2, it's a good product. If it's more than that, let's not get it. So let's find something different. So just a really easy way to try to find things that next time you buy a product and make sure it's a clean product.
Yeah, one of the things too is understand that everyone's level of sensitivity is different. And so in and by itself, one stressor might not pose a problem. But again, it's this accumulation of excess toxins. I had a gal the other day, she was breaking out, and she said, I don't know what's happening. Well, oftentimes skin issues is a gut issue, but this actually, it was her foundation that she was using, that she was having a reaction to. So this is probably the one thing that I think was probably one of the bigger ahas that I've ever had, since I've been studying holistic wellness. And that was a statement that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to any of us. And when it comes to the body and we start looking at functional neurology and the complexities of the body, it's amazing how different areas can reflex to different organs, glands, muscles, ligaments. So it's very important that you guys understand that there's so many toxins out there today, and there's so many variables that affect your health. Again, we have to get into this cause and effect and asking the question, why am I experiencing this symptom, instead of how do I just get rid of it? So it's in the water we drink, the furniture we sit on, and the air we breathe. And the one thing is, Paul and I are still always amazed at how many people are still drinking tap water. And it's not just the amount of water you're drinking that can affect your cell, in terms of hydration. It's the quality of water. It's your electrolytes. There's so many different things, but there's so many contaminants today in the water. So Paula, maybe you can talk about just how many people that you're still finding today that are still drinking tap water.
Yeah, that actually amazes me. I was just talking to a friend on the way home. I was just telling her, I said, we've been in this industry a long time. I said, it's pretty, and her and I both have. And I go, it's pretty interesting to just be aware of like how little sometimes people really know. And I'm like, what? You're drinking tap water? Like I've been drinking filtered water for like 25 plus years. So it's pretty interesting. But anyways, if you're looking at water, she was even asking me like, well, what is the best water filtration? But if you really look at water filtration systems, I would say if you're looking for it, you're going to definitely want to be able to focus in on the reverse osmosis, because that will get rid of, that's the only water filtration that'll get rid of fluoride in your in the water. But it also gets rid of the drugs. So when people take drugs, so any kind of pharmaceutical drug, well, any kind of drug, and they go to the bathroom, it's in your water supply system. So you're getting a dosing of drugs, of statin drugs and hormones and all that. So reverse osmosis for sure. What it does is it takes out everything. So then what you have to really just focus on from there is just being able to bring back your minerals, making sure you have a good, a really good, like probably, I really like more of a biotics type of multivitamin mineral, but put that back into your body so that you don't get depleted from the minerals. But then from there, people talk about hydrogenated water. So I love adding some hydrogenation, adding hydrogenated water back into it. So hydrogen is really important and healthy for your body. So that's getting to a different level. But at the minimum, I tell people just at least get like a basic Brita filter to start. It's not great, but at least it's something to start filtering out some of the chlorine and things like that. But what do you think, Rob, about certain filtration stuff? I mean, do you recommend certain things to
Yeah,
people?
I'm with you. Definitely reverse osmosis. The one thing we have to remind ourselves of, the body's comprised of about 70 to 75% water, not juice, not soda, not tea, not milk, water. And so
Yeah.
we just have to get, really good sources of clean, non-toxic water sources. And then, like Paula was talking about, and kind of one of the things that's becoming more in vogue is hydrogen enriched water filtration systems. So that's another thing too. You got to be a little careful, because sometimes companies will kind of get a hold of what's hot and they're producing really substandard technology. So you got to be a little careful on that. And then when
I have one
we're,
thing to add to that, if you don't mind,
yeah,
Rob. it was funny because she's like, oh my gosh, there's this company. And she goes, they have this water system and they do, and it does like acid and alkaline water. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. So there's actually a water filtration that does that. So you see a lot of alkaline water. Your digestive system is acidic, and that's how you absorb your nutrients. If you actually start to alkalize your digestive system, you're going to run into all sorts of problems. So even if you look at bottled water that is alkaline, you do not want to be drinking that. And don't be
No.
using a water filtration system that is alkalizing your water, which is what she was talking about. I thought I know exactly what you're talking about, but alkaline water is not good for you. So just be aware that there's a lot of different, there's a lot of different stuff out there, and just make sure that if you have questions too, and you can shoot us an email or a text, we're happy to answer that, because we don't want you buying the wrong thing. Something that's actually going to hurt you in the end.
Yeah, getting back to balance, what we were talking about initially, the body's always going to work best in homeostasis or balance. And if we think of your pH in your body, 0 being pure acid and 14 being pure base, you want to be slightly alkaline, about 7.365, right? So it's a little more than halfway. And what happens, like Paula was talking about, is if you become too alkaline, that's going to create problems. If you're too acidic, that creates problems. It's just like if your blood pressure is too high, you can have problems if it's too low. Blood sugar's too high, too low. Remember, the body is always going to work best in balance. So many times where science will get twisted. So because most people live in more of an acidic world, so they're consuming processed foods and sugar, and they're stressed out to the max, all these things are producing acid. So their spin on the science is then we need more alkalinity. And sometimes that's true. But if we exceed that point, like Paul was talking about, the digestion, we don't want an alkaline digestive system. We want an acidic digestive system. We want the blood to be slightly alkaline. So
Yeah.
that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But so another thing too is just the furniture, talking about the furniture. So like Scotchgard, things like that. The off-gassing of new furniture, carpets, cabinetry, and new construction. We've had several people, and even new cars. People will come in and they're like, gosh, they just feel horrific. Come to find out, they just got a new car or they moved into a new house, and they have all these chemicals that are off-gassing. And if your detoxification processes are stressed out, like you're constipated, so you've got a sluggish colon, you've got stress in your liver, your kidneys, and then all of a sudden you get all these toxins that you're exposed to that are off-gassing, it can be just enough to, and Paula will tell you, she's got dozens of stories of people that have gotten new cars and moved into a new space and had a whole host of problems, everything from migraine headaches to sleep issues, PMS.
Yeah.
So, we've got 100 stories there. But so 84,000 chemicals in the United States, 100,000 globally. So look at that number, 84,000 chemicals, right? And so it's a lot of stress at a cellular level we're having to deal with. And just remember, again, your colon has to be functioning optimally. Your liver has to be functioning optimally. Your kidneys, your lymphatic system, we need the waste removal system to function optimally. Otherwise, you're going to store those toxins in your tissues. You're going to store them, or they're going to concentrate at the cellular level. And remember, it takes two things to have a healthy cell: the raw materials, give the body more of what it needs, and then less of what it doesn't. So the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, only managed to require testing for 200 chemicals. I mean, that's ridiculous. 84,000 chemicals. Guys, they're never going to be able to test effectively and efficiently for all these chemicals. And if you just look at things like, um, especially mattresses today, there's like memory foam in and by itself. I mean, that's what the majority of these mattresses that people are getting are comprised of. And the off-gassing, I know Paul and I had gotten a new mattress, and what did it take, Paula? Like a week for that off-gassing of the mattress. So
Yeah.
we had it sitting out in our garage until, we tested favorably for it. So, and most people, what are they doing? They're bringing it home and laying on it right away. So, and you're getting that off gassing constantly. And again, if you have multiple variables or these micro stressors in other areas, you're stressed from food, or you're emotionally stressed out, or you have electrochemical stress, and then on top of that, it's just enough to, put you over the top. So if this stuff was so toxic, why aren't people pouring into the emergency room or calling poison control? So this is super important you understand. What we're getting is the chronic low dose exposures, and then that adds up over time, and eventually, your bucket's running over. So again, many of these stressors in and by themselves, your body can probably handle, right? But over a period of time, we get more and more stress, and it gets to the point where we can no longer handle it. So again, we have to think about all the variables that are involved. It's not just one variable, there's multiple variables. So how are toxins impacting our health? So one of the biggest things that, Paula deals with is endocrine disruption. So um, certain chemicals are going to imitate hormones. They're going to turn one hormone into another. They're going to interfere with hormone signaling. And so probably one of the biggest things that Paul is dealing with is thyroid challenges. And there's so many things that are stressing out people's thyroid today. And the one thing is, in terms of body fat storage, like if you think of where you store your body fat storage is receptor mediated, meaning there's a direct correlation to a specific gland or organ. And if you tend to have your body fat pretty proportionately placed in your body, that's generally an indication of thyroid stress. So when we look at many times when someone's coming into our office, um, and we're meeting them for the first time, Paul and I are already starting the assessment, right? We're watching how they're standing, how they walk, where their body fat storage is. So there's all these signs that we're actually evaluating. So Paula, why don't you share kind of some of the common toxins that you find that you're dealing with on a regular basis that are negatively affecting people?
But when it looks really the chemicals, perfumes and fragrances seem to be very high on the list. I don't know if you ever realized that how many things have fragrances. And I've definitely had a girl that she was just completely, she said she had young kids, and her husband's like, something is not right. And she goes, something's not right with me. And when I tested her, it came up perfumes and fragrances. And I said, okay, so where are you getting exposure to this? Because this is draining you. It's just bombarding your endocrine system, your hormonal system. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, like anything that smells. And she's like, well, I've got those air wicks in every one of my outlets. And I'm like, what? So she has a fragrance thing in every one of her outlets of her house. I'm like, okay, first of all, you need to go through all your house. You need to not get anything that has any fragrances in it. So that's like fragrance free, detergents, fragrance free, like take all those, anything that smells, take it out of your house and have only unscented. And she got her life back within 3 weeks. Her husband was like, she was out like doing stuff out in the yard, and he's like, whoa, now I'm getting my wife back. This is exciting. And literally was just removing all of that from her environment. It was just way too much for her body to handle. So it can be something as simple as that. The endocrine system is very sensitive. A toxin is actually like stress hormones is a huge toxin that I find a lot. So that's excess cortisol, excess adrenaline. So the adrenaline can actually happen. Like if you have excess adrenaline, that can definitely, and excess cortisol, that can wreak havoc on your sleep. And now you're not able to dump the toxins appropriately because you're not getting enough sleep. And so your body's just storing that. So it's really important to, and then that's kind of like this perpetual thing. So I find a lot of toxins actually increase people's cortisol. So if I say, oh, you've got excess stress hormones, a lot of times people will say, well, I don't really have much stress. But I'm like, you've had stress throughout your life. So let's figure out what's going on. And it could be an exposure to a chemical or a heavy metal a couple years ago, along with this life stressor. And it was just so much that your body couldn't handle it. So your body kind of got stuck into that, that high cortisol. And so it's like, what do we have to do to release this from you and get your body back and your cortisol or your stress hormones back into balance again? So the endocrine's very finicky to toxins. So I really look at, especially with women, it's definitely the skincare products. If you're looking at, if you're still menstruating, really, really not good to have tampons that are bleached, which is all tampons unless they're organic. So just something as simple as that. Right now they have these period underwear for people that have, the younger girls, and the period underwear have PFAS on the top of them. So it's like, so that it doesn't, it's like a barrier. So that PFAS is a forever chemical. And then you've got that in your private area. It's like, oh my gosh, this is not good for these young girls. So it's just something as simple as that. So it's really important. So I always look at, when I'm like educating people that are menstruating, there's a lot of women that don't really understand, but it's like, you really want to look for like the organic stuff, so the organic cotton stuff. If you're using those personal care products. So it's really important, if you look at it for endocrine disruptors, look at your personal care products, look at your makeup, look at your toothpaste, look at everything you put on in around your body. Try to keep it as minimal as possible. And then you're never going to go wrong. But it's really about education. And it's hard to know all of this because it's constantly, we're being bombarded with different products in the environment. And how are you going to know that unless you kind of like, I do so much research on it. How would you even know that these period underwear that are the hot thing right now, that they actually have PFAS in them, or that you have the Starbucks cups are lined with, the cup is actually lined with that PFAS, which is a forever chemical. For those of you that are older, they remember when they had DMT and they sprayed that on the crops back in the day. I don't know, it was after World War II. So those chemicals, that DMT is still in the environment. It's still in our tissues. It's still in our blood because it never goes away. So it's really important that we keep all of our detoxification pathways open. And I know Rob's going to talk about that, but that's key to your health. You don't want to be, you don't want to getting built up with these chemicals, or glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is, everybody's like, how did I get that? And I'm like, every single food you eat that's not organic is going to have, and some organic stuff does, because the organic farms are next to farms that are spraying. So, but what you want to make sure is that you're just not holding on to that into the colon, into the liver, into the kidney, and you're making sure that all those pathways are moving, so they can't disrupt your health.
Yeah, and getting back to like the stress hormones, like cortisol. So, and when we look at body fat storage, cortisol, you're going to have more body fat around your midsection. But here's a very interesting story, because my wife has many talents, and one of them is she cuts my hair, and she's been cutting my hair for like 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
And she was cutting my hair and she goes, my gosh, you're thinning on top. And so she's like, well, pull on your hair and let's test. And sure enough, I had excess stress hormones. So what we did is we tested exactly what I needed to mitigate the stress hormones. And then the next time she cut my hair, she's like, my gosh, your hair's, thickening up. So the
Yeah.
one thing is many times it's kind of like the butterfly effect. So we have one stressor that disrupts an organ, a gland, a system, and then many times now you've got this symptom, and then you're addressing that. So again, it's so important to go to the root cause of what's really affecting someone. And many times, again, when you're dealing with something, the first thing you want to do is get rid of the symptom. And
Mhm.
you think about too, like if someone didn't know that information, like if I didn't have access to what we do, some guy starts thinning his hair or he's losing his hair, he could actually do something as extreme as, getting hair plugs or like a hair transplant, right? And he
Mhm.
could have corrected that very simply by just evaluating what the stress was and why he was actually having to deal with that. So yeah, there's many different things. BPA, that's a big one with the water bottles, particularly. Um, so the one thing that's I think super important to understand is companies are out there to sell their products. And you have to be careful when you're looking at certain research studies or data because a company can spin science in so many different ways to benefit the sale of their product. So we have to be really careful interpreting what's it's like we were talking about the hydrogen enriched water filtration systems, uh, whether you're talking that or nutritional supplements, you've got to make sure that you've got a trusted source. And we really have to pay attention to what is the company behind it, and what's the purpose and who did the science as well. Um, let's get into in terms of like BPA. Um, Another thing too that many times Paul and I are surprised is people will actually use microwaves and they'll heat up plastic containers. This is one of the worst things you can do. First of all, don't use a microwave because there's a dozen reasons why we could tell you not to use a microwave. But when you're actually heating up food in a plastic container in the microwave, those chemicals are going into your food. They're leaching into your food. They're estrogen mimickers, and there's so many things hormonally that can be disrupted by that. So are you finding that more and more now, Paula? I know I am when I'm talking to people. How many people still are using plastics even in a microwave?
Yeah, well, what's fascinating is there's actually the newest research on that is there's so much plastic in our environment that every single one of us is consuming a credit card size of plastic every week. Think about that. That's crazy. So that's just within, I mean, if you heat plastic on a food in the microwave, you're actually putting plastic in your food and you're actually eating that, the plastic particles. And plastic doesn't break down. So it's one of those things that you want to look at, like that it, really pollutes I think it's like 40% of our ocean's surface. The surface of the ocean has plastic, like basically plastic pieces in it. So it's really just, I mean, it's really bad. So it's a really a big problem. Something you can do now is say, you know what, instead of that, I want to use reusable cups that are not made of plastic. So you want to say, you know what, I'm going to use a glass container, a stainless steel container. Those are really, really good. Glass is the best, of course. But just be able to reuse it and think about that before you get plastic bottles, because a lot of plastic bottles are shipped in, they're shipped in trucks, especially in the summertime. And the heat, and when that plastic gets heated in that plastic water bottle, that because of the sun and the heat, you're drinking plastic. So if at all possible, that's just one of the things you can do is just I always have a water bottle with me everywhere. So whether it's glass or stainless steel, I always have a water cup with me always. So everybody that knows me, I tell my daughter, where's your cup? She's always drinking out of mine. So just bring your water bottle, get a nice one, get a really cute glass one, and then you enjoy drinking out of it as well. But just one simple way to avoid getting plastic. So that's obviously, like you said, the microwave oven, and then trying to use a glass bottle to drink out of. Those are two major things.
Yeah, and also not only food storage, but if you are heating up food, try and use a glass container as well.
Yep.
Phthalates. So we're going to actually give you some resources too from the environmental working group, just to kind of give you some different resources. But phthalates in a lot of skincare products, again, they can really create a lot of hormonal changes, congenital disabilities, reproduction, obesity, diabetes, thyroid. Thyroid comes up so many times with a lot of these chemicals because there's so many sensitivities with the thyroid. So, and one of the challenges too is you go in and they're looking at very broad markers when you go in and get your thyroid tested with conventional medicine. And so you might have symptomologies of having a sluggish thyroid and they won't even show up on a test. And so, sometimes we again have to dig a little bit deeper, and that's a great thing about using things like applied kinesiology, and we can really get to the root cause of what is stressing out that particular organ, gland, or system. So in terms of avoiding phthalates, the big thing is when you're looking at personal care products, we really want to take a look at if there's a list that says fragrance. Many times that's kind of a hidden phthalate, and that's what it is. So be very careful with products that actually say, particularly natural fragrance, because the labeling today is probably creating more issues than anything because of what they can get away with. So you got to be very careful with that. So again, we're going to send out a few resources, but if you go to www.ewg.org, there's a lot of information. And then if you do /skin deep, you can actually get a lot of information on some of these things around personal care or skincare products. So this is a big one. Heavy metals. Mouth pathology has probably created more serious illness than just about anything in terms of conventional care. And if we take a look at mercury fillings, dental crowns, so many heavy metals, and particularly if we're looking at the segment of the baby boomers, because that's when they were very broadly used. We have
Yeah.
so many people that actually end up with cognitive impairment, a sluggish thyroid, mental fog is a big one, but mercury in the mouth is probably one thing that is probably one of the bigger hidden stressors that people wouldn't even have a concept or a clue. I was actually testing my blood. I was going to do a food sensitivity panel. And when I went to prick my finger to get the blood sample, my blood was all runny. And I was like, why is my blood running? And so I'm like, well, my iron must be off. Well, why is my iron off? Well, you can actually have low levels of iron, but if you have heavy metals, you are not going to absorb your iron. And what was happening is I had a tooth that was leaking or leaching mercury into my bloodstream, and I wasn't able to absorb my iron, and it was causing a number of issues, and I didn't even know it. So I went and got all my metal removed, and so today, sometimes what we do is, like, when Paula will test someone, she might give something to someone to, get those heavy metals out of the body. But if you have the toxin that's constantly you're having to deal with, sometimes you're just going to have to get the mouth addressed. So Paula, do you have anything to add in terms of mouth pathology that you see on a regular basis with people?
Oof, there's a lot there. Yeah, definitely heavy metals. So dental composites are a lot of things too. So there's a lot of chemicals in dental composites that they use or for fillings. So that's really important too. I've also found that people that do, they might like start breaking out on their face, these teenagers that they go in and they have a fluoride treatments because that's really bad for you. So they might have like a sudden breakout or something. So but the teeth are hugely connected to your health, dramatically connected to your health. So if you're having chronic issues, I highly recommend going to see a natural dentist or a biological dentist. We have some in the area that we could recommend that we've seen. So they actually would take out the mercury in a very good way where there's a whole protocol to make sure you're doing it safely, because you want it to be safe to be able to take those out. And then there's also it's just a lot. There's a lot when it comes to the mouth and dental stuff. So I see it all the time that it could be causing problems. Every single tooth is connected to different systems, organs, and glands in your body. So if you have a perpetual issue with specific teeth, you can look directly at every single thing on there. You'll be like, oh, you know what? They said that this tooth is a problem and I need a crown. Go look at a dental chart. And that dental chart will tell you exactly what it's correlated with, and symptoms, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that is so me. I have every one of those symptoms. And then you notice once you get that tooth fixed that things start getting better and better and better. So it's huge. If there's one thing you do, you make sure that you get the dental work done right, but making sure it's done at the right place. But yeah, there's just some really cool cutting edge things on that. They have like this thermography saying to be able to check your teeth and stuff. So that's not going to give you radiation or anything. So there's a lot of really new things coming down the pike. So it's very exciting. But yeah, definitely the fillings, the crowns, the bridges, all the stuff that they use for them. A lot of chemicals are used and composites, and sometimes people's body is really sensitive to that and it can cause lots of problems. So just be aware of it. Definitely be
Yeah, I
aware.
had a guy who he was having some cognitive impairment, and he was really struggling, and his family was getting really worried. And when we did a hair tissue mineral analysis, we found very high levels of copper, and copper is an irritant to the brain, and it was coming from a dental crown that he had. And
Mhm.
so he went and got the crown. They had actually put in a new crown, and then we had to detoxify those metals. But it was a complete 180-degree turnaround, and he would have never ever connected that. So many times these symptoms that people are experiencing, they'll go get test after test after test, and they won't find anything. And sometimes you're just getting the wrong test, right? So sometimes you just have to dig a little deeper. And then another areas of heavy metals, now we're finding more in fish. So people that, would eat a lot of tuna could have high levels of mercury as well.
Mhm.
Uh, so seafood is becoming more and more problematic. So sometimes it becomes a little disheartening, and you're like, my gosh, what am I going to have to live in a hazmat suit and live in a little bubble? But it just makes us realize that we have to make sure our detoxification pathways are not compromised. So we're looking at our colon, our liver, our kidneys,
Mhm.
making sure we're moving our lymph on a regular basis. So the landmines are out there. We just have to know how to sidestep them, and then how to deal with them as they come along. So another thing is some of the glycol ethers, and that's just in household cleaning items and paints. So one of the things you can do, oh my gosh, this is something, Paula, we should probably have your dad talk about. He cleans, tell everybody what your dad uses to clean, because he only uses this one product. What is it?
Well, he uses two things: vinegar, white vinegar,
Yes.
and baking soda for
Yep.
every single thing.
Yep. So
Everything. He uses those two things. His laundry, literally everything.
yeah, so that does a great job. So you got to be very careful with some of the cleaning products that you may be using, because you're ingesting those, and then also if you're not using gloves, you're absorbing that through your skin as well. So
Yeah.
cleaning products are a big one we have to watch. And a lot of times as people develop, again, more macro stressors, that's going to show up in the skin. And the skin oftentimes is just a barometer of what's going on internally. So if you have skin issues, many times it's something that you've got not on the skin itself, but internally, and then it shows up in the skin. Fire retardants, again, we talked a little bit about, like, like what they're putting on, like with Scotch Guard and different chemicals they're using. But again, even paints. So people that have their house painted, we got to be careful on that. But there's, non-latex paints. There's a lot. And Paula, you can probably speak a little bit to the paints, but everything from mattresses, electronics, the carpet padding, all of this stuff off gases. But
Yeah.
paints, you've tested a few people for paints, haven't you, Paula?
Yeah, there's people that are really chemically sensitive and they want to you want to get the no VOC paint. They have a lot of low VOC, most of that's that these days, but they do have no VOC paint. That's what we were used to do our house, and it's a much thicker paint, but it looks really nice. It's pretty great. When you look at, so that's definitely, you want to make sure you have good paint. And then the carpet stuff. So the natural fibers on the carpet are kind of what you're looking for. If you're looking at like, wool would be a perfect example, would be a natural carpet that's not going to have a lot of chemicals and all that kind of stuff in it. If you start looking at synthetic fibers, the synthetic fibers are going to be the ones that are going to have more of the toxic load to them. So you kind of want to really look at that and say, okay, in a perfect world, if you're ultra chemically sensitive, you do a hardwood floor. You do a hardwood floor or, some sort of vinyl floor, but something that doesn't have carpet, because a lot of carpet has a lot of toxicity to it. So, and it off gases pretty strongly. You can really smell it for a long time. So in a perfect world, if you're chemically sensitive, hardwood or some sort of hard surface flooring is going to be best.
Yeah, and then a biggie is glyphosates. So organophosphates, a lot of the chemicals they use. Here's a really interesting story. I had a gal who came in a couple of weeks ago, and she was having low back issues. And when I tested her, it was an avocado or avocado that she was eating that was shutting her down, that was stressing out her small intestine. And then her small intestine was shutting down her deep core stabilizers, and that was causing the low back pain. Well, she was super frustrated because she wanted more fat in her diet. And I said, well, why don't you eat an avocado? And she's like, yeah, I love avocado. So I said, well, try and get some more avocado in. And so I had just told her the week before, and she's like, you just told me to eat avocado. And it wasn't the avocado. So when we tested her, it wasn't the avocado. It was what was sprayed on the avocado. So sometimes it's not just the food, it's the food that has been sprayed by some of these chemicals. So glyphosates is, my gosh, Roundup, it's sprayed on any conventional crop. And more people are coming up with more and more sensitivities, and it has a lot to do with our food source. So sometimes, someone might come up, sensitive to wheat. And they'll go overseas, they'll go to Italy, and they'll eat pasta and eat bread and have zero problems. And they come over here and their gut hurts and they've got thyroid issues and they've got headaches. So it's not always just the food, it's what's being sprayed on the food. And that's why Paul and I are always constantly talking to our clients about trying to eat almost exclusively organic. And, sometimes people will say, well, it's really expensive. It is, but so is dealing with some of the health challenges that non-organic food consumption leads to. And so we have to look at big picture many times, right? And this is a long play. And when we realize how many toxins we're dealing with on a regular basis, we have to come to the realization that we just have to do a better job with the things that we can control. And one of the things we can control is whether or not we eat organic, right? So, Paula, do you have anything to add to the glyphosates?
Glyphosate is the #1 toxicity that I find. Just by far. I mean, it just gets stuck in that colon. It gets attached to the mucosal lining, and it causes leaky gut, which is basically the fibers to kind of, instead of being tight, they start to loosen up. And then it causes food particles to go into the bloodstream. And then you have this immune reaction to foods. And before you know it, you can't pretty much eat anything. And because but really, when it comes down to it, it's that glyphosate. So glyphosate is a bad deal. So really, it's important to understand a lot of countries they ban it, and we use it just freely in this country. So every person is exposed to it. If you eat anything that's non-organic fruits and vegetables, you're getting glyphosate, and you're getting glyphosate just from in the air around here in farms, because all the farms are spraying too. So breathing it in, it's in the groundwater. I'm constantly have it for me, because I can feel it when I'm in the shower. We have well water and we're out in the farm country, and I can just feel my body start to swell as I'm in the shower. There's just no filter being out here. So hopefully we won't be living here much longer, but there's no filter to filter out that glyphosate. So it's really important to understand that is a really big problem. It causes a lot of gut issues. It causes a lot of issues everywhere. So the best thing you can do is try to minimally expose yourself to it by buying organic. I mean, it's just about where you prioritize where you spend your money. So if you spend your money, do you spend your money on lavish vacations all the time? Or would you rather take a few less vacations and feel a little healthier and have a little healthier foods? So in this day and age, you can find it so much cheaper. You can go to Aldi and find things cheaper. You can find a lot of organic at Costco. I mean, it should not be an issue of money. It's barely not that much more to buy organic.
Yeah, and then, one of the things too is shopping locally, farmers markets. That's not always going to give you an organic source, but I think it's important to understand where is my food coming from. And you have to be really careful, because just because it is at a farmer's market doesn't necessarily mean they didn't use some chemicals to grow that food. So you just really want to be careful where you're getting your food from. So how do we avoid them? Well, the big thing is, like we said, obviously eating organic, and then various vegetable washes that you can use to really scrub those chemicals. But we're going to give you a list of foods that there's certain fruits and vegetables that are more laden with chemicals, and those are the ones for sure you want to buy organic. when it comes to that. So the Clean 13 is a list that you should get familiar with and really understand the fruits and vegetables that have the majority of the chemicals. And so we'll supply that list for you as well. And then we have to take the steps on a regular basis when it comes to just some of the products that we have at our house. So we want to avoid plastics as much as you can. Again, using, our glass containers. You want to detox your home with simple products. You can even make your own cleaning products, like Paula was talking about, with baking soda and the vinegar. So we also have a little recipe that we'll put together for you guys, just for if you want to do some natural cleaning products. And then just moving your body, exercising on a regular basis, taking a sauna. If you have access to a sauna, the more you sweat, the more toxins that you can remove from your body. So very, very healthy. And when it comes to like detoxification programs, we recommend that people do some sort of cleanser detox once a season, once a quarter. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the detox program that we recommend. We've actually been getting some really great results with this. The one thing is, we don't want weight loss to be necessarily the driver, but for a lot of people, it is a driver. They realize when they detox, they're going to lose probably some unwanted body fat. But what we really want to do is we want to rebalance your body, so then your body can start to release this excess body fat. One of the things the body will do is it will accumulate excess body fat to protect you or buffer the acids that are created in your body. So when it comes to detoxification, part of this is, sometimes people are looking for like a metabolic reset. It's just a way to really kickstart your metabolism. The liver is really the garbage dump of your body's waste, and sometimes the liver just needs some extra support. It gets so overloaded. And so we can use this cleanse to not only cleanse the liver, increase metabolic activity, but just really use it as a foundation or a stepping stone to your health program. So we'll kind of go through what's in it. So it's got 17 grams of organic pea protein. It's got 6 grams of fiber. It's got nitro greens. So when you think of like a green drink, the green drink is actually in this NutriClear Plus, but it doesn't taste grassy. It actually has a really good berry vanilla flavor. It's got medium chain triglycerides, so really good healthy fats. Mixes great with water, almond milk, coconut milk, whatever kind of milk substitute you like. It's free of sucrose, fructose, artificial colors and flavors, gluten and dairy free. So you have little packets. It comes in, you've got 28 packets, so it's a 14-day program. You take 2 packets a day and then 2 supplement packets. So you do 2 powders a day, 2 packets, and then there's actually an approved eating list. So basically, this is all a metabolic cleanse diet that you're going to have. So it's really eating very clean. It's an approved list, super simple. Yes, you can eat this. No, you can't eat this. Super simple. It's literally paint by numbers. Got a little shaker cup in there. So people are seeing right now, I think on average in 14 days, it's about 6 to 8 pounds of weight people are losing. So typically people will do this 15-day metabolic reset. And then will go into healing their gut microbiome for another 4 weeks. So in a 6-week program, the average person's losing about 14 pounds. And again, we don't want that necessarily to be the driver, but it sure is a nice side effect, right? So this is all about cleansing the liver, really detoxifying the liver. And a byproduct of that is you're gonna reduce that body fat. So if you want to purchase it, you can purchase it at the Body Project, or you can go to our website, thebodyprojectstudio.com/store, and look for the NutriClear Plus, and just put in the shopping cart, and then they'll deliver that right to you. Again, super easy. All the instructions are in the manual. 2 of these nutritional packets a day. So there's some days like when I'm really busy, I'll have 2 of these in a day and then just end with a meal. So there's times that I'll just stay on this for an extended period of time. So, and the great thing about it is, like, these packets, it's a meal replacement. It's the cheapest, highest quality meal you'll ever get. So really great stuff. And we've had so many great results. And in fact, one of our staff, Lynn, has just, Paula, I don't know, do you have any idea how much weight is she down 10, 12? And then,
Ooh, I don't know, but she said she hasn't been this low in 10 years.
yeah. And she's
Out of
tried a
every
lot of
cleanse
stuff.
or detox, every cleanse and detox we've done, she said she didn't get as good results as this program for sure. So doing that program, the most important thing with it, the reason your body holds on to the body fat is because your body holds it holds the toxic load in the body fat, so that body's not getting overwhelmed in your organs and glands with toxins. So it'll just store it into the body fat. So once you're actually able to do the detox and able to dump all that toxic load, your body can say, okay, now I can start releasing the body fat. So for her, she got really good results with those 2 weeks, but I think she lost 6 pounds in those 2 weeks. But it
Yeah.
was more after that when she started doing the microbiome fuel
Yeah. The metabolic biome
shake.
fuel was great.
Yeah, the metabolic biome fuel shake, that she started doing that one. And as she's continued to do that, she's continued to lose and lose and lose, because that's shifting the gut microbiome and feeding that the good bacteria in your gut. So it's kind of that 2-stage thing. So that's just the start of it, is that 15 days, but it's dumping those toxins out. And yes, she looks amazing. I don't know if she's on right now. She was going to be on, but
Yeah. Well, the one thing
yeah.
too is, more importantly, of course she looks great and everyone wants to look great, but she talks about how good she feels, and she struggled with her
Digestion.
digestion for many, many years. We've tried a lot of different things. This is probably the best results she's had on anything we've done. So,
Yep.
really a great
Calls them
program.
miracle products.
Yeah. Yeah. But what's great is super simple. You got the 30 packets, and you have the 30 pouches of supplements. So it's so easy to do. So we've got a bunch of information we're going to email out to everybody, so you have some of the resources that we talked about. We'll also have the webinar replay if there's anything you want to reference. And then we're going to have a link to purchase the NutriClear Plus if you want to order it on our online store. Otherwise, you can just come in and order it at our location. So where am I? Okay, so I am just going to stop this. All right. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight.
Thank
Hopefully,
you.
you learned a thing or two. We have so many different stories of really dramatic physiological changes in people's lives. So part of this starts with just educating yourself, and then it doesn't matter how much you learn, you have to take action. You got to do something, right? So knowledge is nothing without application. So if you learn something tonight, go out and take action. And we're always here for you guys. We've got a great group of people. We're so blessed to be able to work with so many amazing people. So thank you all for all your support, and just know we're going to continue to bring you as much information and find as many ways as we can to support you on your journey of health. So anything to add, Paula?
No, thank you all. If you have any questions, please reach out to us and we're happy to answer anything that any questions that you may have. What's the best way for them to reach out to us?
Well, you can either give us a call at our office, 952-220-7201, or you can go to our website. And again, if you want to check out the store, you can order right online. But if you have any questions, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to help
Thank you all for taking your time tonight to do this and coming here as part of our community. We really, really appreciate everybody doing that.